Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a field that honestly used to sound like pure science fiction, right? Quantum computing.
Right.
But now it's incredibly real and, well, it's unfolding right before our eyes.
Yeah.
This isn't just some distant concept anymore. It's a rapidly transforming industry of very real, tangible commercial applications. Many experts are saying it. The quantum era has, well, it's already begun.
And they're definitely right to say that. What's truly striking, I think, is the sheer scale of the growth we're seeing, the quantum computing market. It was valued at just over $1 billion this year, 2024.
Wow.
And it's projected to just skyrocket to over $18 billion by 2035.
18 billion.
Yeah, that's a compound annual growth rate of nearly 29%. And, some forecasts are even more bullish, maybe $24 billion by 2034.
That's incredible.
So this isn't just like theoretical future talk anymore. We are absolutely at a pivotal moment.
That is a massive leap. Okay, so for this deep dive, our mission really is to unpack what this explosive growth truly signifies for all of us. We're going to dive into the core technologies driving it, explore the surprising real-world applications already making a difference across industries, and then try to understand the critical challenges and, importantly, the strategic opportunities. These are key for you, whether you're an investor, a business leader, or, frankly, just incredibly curious about what's coming next. And all of this is distilled from a pretty comprehensive investor's outlook and strategic guide.
Exactly. And what that report really emphasizes is a crucial shift in investment focus. Funding has moved from purely long-term, maybe speculative research to a clear expectation of commercial readiness. Now, just think about this. In the first quarter of 2025 alone, quantum tech investments went over $1.25 billion.
Just Q1.
Just Q1. That's more than double the previous year's figures. And the quantum computer companies themselves, they captured over 70% of that funding.
Wow.
It's a very, very strong signal that the market is maturing and fast.
Okay, so we're talking billions flowing in. But how is this rapidly growing market actually structured? Where are these investments actually going?
Yeah, good question. The market fundamentally segments into three core areas. First, you have hardware. This is really the indispensable foundation. We're talking quantum processors, the qubits themselves.
Quantum blocks.
Exactly. It's absolutely critical for scaling up the systems, enhancing stability, all that. And it currently holds the lion's share of the market, something like 61% in 2024, attracting heavy, sustained investment. Then there's software. This is the vital interface, right? It allows us to actually use the quantum computers.
How you talk to it?
Precisely. Includes quantum languages, development kits you've probably heard of, IBM's Qiskit or Google's Cirq. Microsoft has 1-2 simulation tools. This software lets researchers and businesses, build and test quantum applications. And finally, there are services, often delivered as quantum as a service or CORS.
CORS, okay.
Yeah. This means things like consulting, training, and really importantly, cloud access to actual quantum systems. This really helps democratize things, makes quantum capabilities accessible beyond just the huge corporations, and supports research, workforce training, but its growth, of course, is directly tied to how fast the hardware gets better.
Okay, let's talk about that hardware then. Specifically the quantum bits or qubits, because this is where it gets really interesting, right? There isn't just one way to build these things.
Not at all.
There are loads of different approaches. So how do these different qubit technologies stack up? Who are the major players pushing the boundaries in each one?
You're absolutely right. The qubit landscape is incredibly diverse. And yeah, each approach has its own strengths and its own challenges. One of the most prominent are superconducting qubits. These are, favored for their fast gate speeds. They're somewhat compatible with existing semiconductor manufacturing, which is a plus. IBM is a major leader here. They're rapidly scaling up processors, 127 qubits, 433, over 1,000 now, aiming for more than 4,000 by 2025. Fujitsu is also in this space.
But the catch?
The catch is they're extremely sensitive to noise, environmental interference. So they need these really sophisticated cryogenic systems. We're talking temperatures just a fraction above absolute zero.
Oh, serious cooling.
Serious cooling. And errors are still a big hurdle, rates of 0.1% to 1% without error correction. So they're not quite practical or commercially viable for universal applications yet. That said, IBM is really pushing hard on fault-tolerant systems. Their IBM Quantum Starling, projected for 2029, they expect it to perform 20,000 times more operations than today's machines.
20,000 times, okay.
Then we have trapped ions. These often boast some of the lowest error rates, especially for smaller quantum operations, like 2-qubit gates. They're known for higher precision, longer coherence times, meaning the qubits hold their quantum state longer, which is vital.
Right, you need that time to compute.
Exactly, and they offer all-to-all connectivity, which means any qubit can talk directly to any other. Simplifies programming. Quantinuum, using trapped ions, actually made headlines in 2024. They demonstrated a commercial-ready application for certified random numbers in cybersecurity.
The real use case.
A real commercial use case. IonQ is another big player, with their Forte system planning bigger chips. Oxford Ionics too, the main hurdle here. It's tough to control a very large number of individual ions precisely. So scalability is the challenge. Commercial systems are often in the, say, 10 to 30 qubit range right now.
Oh, sense. What else?
Next up, photonic quantum systems, using photons, particles of light. The big advantage here is that photons are pretty robust against heat and noise, so no need for those expensive cryogenics or vacuum chambers.
That sounds much easier.
Potentially, yeah. And you can use optical fiber for scaling and networking, leveraging the existing photonics industry. Xanadu, for instance, achieved quantum advantage with 216 qubits using this method. Sequantum has this incredibly ambitious goal, 1 million qubits by late 2027.
1 million. Wow.
Yeah. And early companies are already offering commercial photonic processors, especially for ML and AI tasks. The downside, while photon interactions can be probabilistic, it's not always guaranteed, which can make certain operations a bit trickier to control consistently. But despite that, this area has attracted massive investment. Sequantum alone raised over $700 million. Xanadu's even planning a quantum computing data center by 2029.
Okay, so light-based. Then there are atoms.
Right, neutral atoms. These offer advantages in scalability, coherence times, how the qubits interact. A key benefit is they can often operate at room temperature or near it. That really cuts down on costs and complexity.
Big difference with superconducting.
Huge difference. And they use optical tweezers, basically focused laser beams, to arrange the qubits really flexibly. Atom computing has demonstrated a platform with over 1,100 qubits. Quora's Akula system, 256 atoms, is even accessible via the cloud. The challenge. Still, precise control of very large arrays, scaling to millions of qubits is the hurdle. But they're definitely moving from just research into HPC and commercial data centers.
Okay, 2 more approaches mentioned in the outline, I think. Topological and annealing.
Yep. Topological qubits are, well, they're kind of the moonshot. Really groundbreaking idea. They're designed to be inherently error-resistant. The information isn't stored locally on one qubit, but non-locally, encoded in the topology, the structure, potentially using these exotic particles called Majorana's.
So errors are less likely to mess things up.
Exactly, that's the promise. Extreme stability, potentially hours, days, maybe weeks, which would drastically reduce the need for complex error correction. Microsoft unveiled their Majorana 1 chip in Feb 2025, aiming eventually for 1 million qubits on a single chip. Nokia Bell Labs is targeting a working topological qubit by 2026. But, and it's a big but, this is still highly experimental. Needs huge breakthroughs in material science, fabrication. It's high risk, long term, not in commercial computers yet.
Got it. High potential, high difficulty. And the last one, quantum annealing.
Right, quantum annealing. This one's different because it stands out for its immediate commercial viability, but for a specific class of problems, optimization problems. D-Wave is the key player here, and they're already profitable, working with enterprise clients like Ford Otosan, MasterCard, showing actual proven ROI.
Profitable already. That's significant.
It is. Their Leap Cloud platform gives companies a low-risk way to try it out. Their latest system, Advantage 2, has over 4,400 qubits. It's production-ready. The main difference, though, is it's specialized. It's not a universal quantum computer that can run any quantum algorithm, but for optimization tasks. It's the leader in near-term revenue and real-world use.
That's a great overview of the different approaches. It really clarifies things. And it makes perfect sense that quantum advantage isn't this single distant event we're waiting for, but more like a series of breakthroughs in specialized areas.
Yeah.
Like you said, D-Wave in optimization, Quantinuum in cybersecurity. So it sounds like organizations don't actually need to wait for some perfect universal quantum computer to start getting value.
Yeah.
This near-term or narrow quantum advantage is already delivering.
Precisely. And it really begs the question, doesn't it? How common will hybrid approaches become? You know, blending classical computing power with quantum capabilities to tackle these big problems. It seems pretty clear that this blended approach will be crucial for a long time. And when we talk about all these advancements, it's worth just maybe quickly listing some of the key players pushing things forward. We've mentioned many.
Yeah, a lot of names already.
Right. IBM, Google, Quantum AI, Microsoft, of course. But also these really innovative companies like IonQ, Quantinuum, D-Wave, Xanadu, Sequantum, Rigetti, Intel is involved, Atom Computing, Quera Computing, all making significant strides, each with their own focus and preferred tech. It's a really dynamic field.
Absolutely. Okay, so we understand the tech landscape, the market structure, the players. But let's get to the impact. What does this all mean for the real world? Where are quantum computers actually making a tangible difference today? And what can we expect, pretty soon?
Yeah, that's where it gets really exciting, I think. Quantum computing has the potential to just transform so many industries. Let's start with cybersecurity and post-quantum cryptography, or PQC. This is urgent.
The whole Q-Day thread people talk about.
Exactly. The day when powerful enough quantum computers could potentially break the encryption methods we rely on today, it's a very real concern. We're even seeing worries about harvest now, decrypt later attacks where encrypted data is stolen now, with the plan to decrypt it later once the quantum computers are ready.
Scary thought.
It is, and that's why there's this urgent global shift towards PQC. In the U.S., NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, is actively working on standardizing new quantum-resistant algorithms. We expect final standards around 2027. The advice right now: adopt hybrid systems, layer the new methods with the old for transition. And beyond just replacing current crypto, there are things like quantum key distribution, QKD, which offers inherently secure communication. Companies like Toshiba are already developing practical systems.
So this is huge for security.
It's massive,
Yeah.
a non-negotiable imperative, really, for data privacy, national security, intellectual property. It's driving huge government investment and creating a really robust market for these PQC solutions.
Okay, what's next? Drug discovery comes up a lot.
Yes, drug discovery and materials science. This is a huge one. Quantum computers have this unique ability to simulate molecules and proteins at a fundamental quantum level.
Something classical computers struggle with.
They really struggle with the complexity, yeah. Quantum computers can potentially accelerate drug discovery dramatically, simulating complex interactions, predicting how a drug might behave. We're seeing really compelling examples already. St. Jude Children's Research Hospital and the University of Toronto used quantum computing to identify potential ligands for the KRAS protein, a cancer target, often called undruggable.
Wow.
Pfizer and IBM are exploring simulations for Alzheimer's. Biogen is looking at protein misfolding. Pascual and Qubit Pharmaceuticals are analyzing protein hydration. And in material science, it's about materials by design, creating new materials with specific properties. Volkswagen worked with D-Wave on more efficient batteries. Others are looking at fuel cell catalysts, high-temperature superconductors, even studying metal corrosion like Boeing and IBM.
So it's not just faster, it's enabling things that weren't possible.
Exactly. It's an enabler of impossible science, tackling problems that were basically intractable before. It could fundamentally reshape business models in pharma, chemicals, materials.
Okay, finance is always quick to adopt new tech. What's happening there?
Definitely. Financial modeling and optimization. Quantum offers superior capabilities for things like risk analysis, portfolio optimization. They can process massive data sets and simulate complex financial models exponentially faster than classical methods.
So finding better investment strategies, managing risk.
Precisely. Hedge funds are already exploring quantum-enhanced portfolio optimization. Global banks are using quantum simulations for complex market scenarios. MasterCard and BBVA, we mentioned, are using D-Wave systems, likely for optimization tasks, maybe fraud detection. We hear about significant reductions in fraud detection times, accelerating calculations for complex derivatives from, say, hours down to minutes.
And in finance, speed is money.
Absolutely. Even marginal improvements in speed or accuracy can yield huge competitive advantages. Hundreds of billions of dollars are at stake. It enables totally new financial products, more sophisticated trading algorithms.
Makes sense. And the link with AI, that seems like a powerful combination.
Oh, incredibly powerful. AI and machine learning enhancement. Quantum computing could revolutionize how we train large language models, for instance. By accelerating the underlying matrix operations and optimization processes, it could help overcome AI's current massive computational costs and energy consumption.
So making AI cheaper and potentially more powerful.
Exactly. Quantum computers, with their inherent parallelism, are naturally good at handling the vast data sets involved in AI. This benefits natural language processing, image recognition, recommender systems. We're even seeing the development of specific quantum neural networks, or QNNs, the convergence of quantum and AI. It's a massive force multiplier. It addresses AI's hunger for computation and energy, potentially enabling much more complex models. All the major tech players are looking at this intersection.
Fascinating. Are there other notable areas popping up?
Yeah, definitely. Lots of emerging use cases. We mentioned logistics optimization, D-Wave, help Ford Odins cut manufacturing scheduling time by 80%. That's huge.
50%.
Yeah. Autonomous vehicle testing accelerating the simulation of millions of driving scenarios. Telecom network optimization, NTT Docomo, used D-Wave to reduce congestion at base stations by 15%. IBM is working on quantum models for better weather and climate modeling. And of course, defense applications, secure communication, advanced data analysis, mission planning. The list keeps growing.
That's a truly impressive range of applications already taking shape. But okay, let's be realistic. As exciting as all this is, we know this field faces some pretty significant hurdles.
Oh, absolutely.
So what are the major obstacles? What's standing in the way of even wider adoption?
You're right, the challenges are substantial. On the technical front, a primary hurdle is still qubit instability and error rates. Qubits are just incredibly delicate. They lose their quantum state, decohere very quickly. This leads to unreliable computations.
So the calculations can just go wrong.
They can, yeah. Current systems might achieve, say, 99.9% fidelity for basic operations. That sounds good. But for practical, complex, fault-tolerant applications, you need way better, like 99.999% or even more nines.
A huge jump in quality needed.
A huge jump. And then there's scalability. It's just really hard to build systems with a large number of stable, well-controlled, interconnected qubits. Neutral atoms show promise for large numbers, but maintaining that precise control over thousands or millions is still a massive engineering challenge. And here's a key insight, I think. It's not just about the raw qubit count you hear advertised.
Right, the big numbers.
Yeah. Qubit quality, stability, and especially effective error correction are the real bottlenecks to commercial viability. Breakthroughs in error correction, things like Google's surface code, Microsoft's topological approach, IBM's logical qubits, these are far more indicative of actual practical progress.
So fewer, better qubits are more useful than many noisy ones.
Absolutely. A smaller number of highly stable, error-corrected logical qubits, like IBM's target of maybe 200 logical qubits for their Starling system, will have vastly more impact than thousands, even millions, of today's noisy physical qubits. Solutions involve constant work on quantum error correction, QEC, better mitigation strategies, clever modular architectures like IBM is building.
Okay, so technical hurdles are significant. What else? Ethics comes to mind, especially with the code-breaking potential.
Definitely. The ethical and societal implications are profound and need careful consideration now. That ability to break current encryption, the Q-day scenario, raises huge concerns about data privacy and security. It absolutely necessitates that coordinated global transition to quantum-resistant cryptography we talked about urgently. Then, integrating quantum with AI quantum machine learning, it amplifies the existing concerns we already have about AI transparency, accountability, potential bias in decision-making systems.
And job.
Job displacement is a real possibility in sectors heavily reliant on classical computing tasks that quantum might automate or vastly speed up. This means large-scale workforce reskilling becomes essential. Military applications obviously raise concerns about advanced weapons, surveillance, potentially fueling an arms race. We have to be mindful of that. Environmentally, current quantum hardware, especially those needing cryogenics, has high energy demands. There's also reliance on potentially rare materials. Sustainability needs to be factored in. And finally, access and equity. There's a real risk that the immense cost and expertise required could lead to unequal access, widening the gap between nations or organizations.
The quantum divide.
Exactly. It's a classic dual-use dilemma. The tech offers amazing benefits but also carries risks. The rapid pace means we need proactive governance and ethical frameworks before negative impacts get locked in. Companies, investors, they really need to build ethics and sustainability into their core strategies from day one.
And you mentioned cost.
Yeah.
That leads to the economic side.
Yes, substantial economic barriers and workforce development challenges remain. Quantum computers are just exceptionally expensive to build and operate right now. A 1,000 qubit system could be well over $10 million. Some estimate the production cost of a single high-quality qubit at around $10,000. A truly useful, fault-tolerant machine could run into the tens of billions.
Tens of billions, okay.
Yeah, and compounding this is a Critical skills gap. There is a huge pressing need for a skilled, diverse workforce engineers, scientists, developers who understand quantum principles. One estimate projects may be 5.8 million quantum-related jobs worldwide by 2040. We are nowhere near having the people to fill those roles yet.
So we need the talent pipeline.
Desperately. Investment in education, training, reskilling, it's not just a nice to have, it's a critical long-term strategic necessity. Without the qualified talent, the hardware progress will be stalled or underutilized. The kind of workforce needed requires this unique blend of physics, math, computer science, plus very specialized quantum skills. Interdisciplinary knowledge, problem-solving, collaboration, adaptability are key.
And what are these jobs? What do they pay?
Well, roles are emerging like quantum software engineer. Average U.S. salaries might be in the $146,000 to $173,000 range. Quantum hardware engineer, maybe around $101,000 average. Quantum research scientist, about $122,000. Consultants can range widely, maybe $80,000 to $180,000 or more, depending on expertise.
So good salaries reflecting the demand.
Exactly. And we're seeing universities like MIT, KST in Korea, University of Colorado Boulder launching specialized programs, plus online courses and certifications from IBM, Microsoft, MIT X Pro, trying to bridge that gap.
Okay. So despite these really significant challenges, technical, ethical, economic, it sounds like you're saying the quantum space is still ripe with strategic opportunities.
Oh, absolutely.
How should our listeners be thinking about seizing the moment, given everything we've discussed?
Yeah, despite the hurdles, the momentum is undeniable. That surge in Q1 2025 investments, over $1.25 billion, that really feels like an inflection point. Serious capital is now being deployed with, frankly, clear expectations of near-term returns, not just long-term R&D. For investors looking at this space, opportunities can be sort of broadly categorized by timeline and risk. You've got QC R&D, especially now through maybe 2030, high potential ROI from breakthroughs, very attractive to deep tech VCs, private equity willing to take risks. Then QC hardware, same time frame roughly, potential to dominate a huge growing market, but it needs massive capital investment, faces intense competition, and will likely see consolidation. This is probably funded by mega funds, major tech players. Looking further out, maybe 2030 to 2040, you have QC applications. This is about revolutionizing industries, simulation, materials, crypto. But there's more uncertainty about the ROI horizon for VCs and specific verticals here. And running alongside all of this, from now through 2040, is QC computing services. QAS promises recurring subscription revenue, but faces uncertainty about demand growth and competition. Again, likely funded by bigger players.
And are there other ways in besides direct investment?
Sure. Corporate venture capital arms are active. Booz Allen Ventures, investing in CEQC is one example. And for broader exposure, there are exchange-traded funds, ETFs, focusing on quantum, like the Defiance Quantum ETF, QTUM.
Okay, that's helpful for investors. What about corporations? How should they be preparing? Should they jump in now?
The advice is overwhelmingly, yes, engage now, don't delay. The risk of waiting is missing out on potentially significant competitive advantages down the line. The field is evolving so quickly. A structured roadmap for corporate quantum readiness might look something like this. Short term, like now through 2025. Start establishing strategic partnerships. Talk to startups, hardware providers, the big cloud hyperscalers. Initiate collaborations, maybe small projects focused on quantum software development relevant to your business.
Get your feet wet.
Exactly. Midterm, say around 2027, initiate more robust internal quantum research programs. Start actively scouting for specific use cases within your operations. Begin developing algorithms and applications tailored to your needs. Build internal knowledge. Okay.
And then long term, maybe 2028, 2029 onwards, focus on scaling the quantum culture and expertise throughout the organization. That means extensive upskilling programs for existing staff, fostering deeper ties with universities for talent pipelines, and critically comprehensive preparation for that post-quantum cybersecurity transition we discussed. That needs to be well underway.
That makes sense. Phased approach.
Right. And what's really fascinating and maybe counterintuitive is that strategic partnerships in building these ecosystems are arguably just as crucial as raw qubit counts right now.
More important than just having the biggest machine. In many ways, yes. The complexity and the capital intensity are just so high that collaboration is key. This cooperative model is what's really accelerating progress and building a robust, sustainable ecosystem. Look at the examples. IBM focusing on middleware, cloud integration, partnering with national labs like Oak Ridge. Google Quantum AI working with Socionext on controllerships. Microsoft Azure Quantum acting as a platform, offering access to different hardware from partners like Quantinuum, Atom Computing. IonQ collaborating with Kipu Quantum on protein folding. Quantinuum partnering with Invest Qatar, NVIDIA. D-Wave's profitable partnerships with Ford Osan, MasterCard, Xanadu working with DARPA and the U.S. Air Force. So Quantum partnering with global foundries on manufacturing. It's all about collaboration.
That ecosystem point is really crucial. Okay, so let's try and bring this all together. To summarize our deep dive today, it feels like the quantum computing industry is truly at a major inflection point. It's moving firmly from theoretical promise to, well, tangible reality. We heard experts predicting quantum advantage in specific areas like optimization, material science, maybe AI training, as early as 2026.
Mm.
We see IBM's ambitious roadmap for their fault-tolerant Starlink system by 2029, aiming for 20,000 times more operations. Quantinuum is also targeting full fault tolerance by 2029. Sequantum aiming for that million qubits by late 2027. Xanadu planning a quantum data center by 2029. It really does feel like the quantum era has already begun, doesn't it? With real-world, commercially viable use cases already active across industries.
Absolutely. And this dynamism, this acceleration we're seeing, it's fueled by a powerful self-reinforcing cycle. It's quite clear now. Increased investment fuels more R&D, which leads to technological breakthroughs. Those breakthroughs unlock more practical, valuable applications.
Which attracts more investment.
Exactly, which attracts even more investment, more supportive government policies. It creates this upward spiral, suggesting really sustainable and accelerating momentum for the whole field.
So for you, our listener, wrapping this up, here are maybe a few strategic recommendations to mull over as you navigate this rapidly evolving landscape. For corporations, the method seems clear: engage proactively. Don't wait on the sidelines. Establish those strategic partnerships. Initiate internal R&D. Start scouting for use cases relevant to your business. Invest seriously in workforce development and upskilling. Prioritize your post-quantum cryptography readiness that's non-negotiable. And embrace hybrid classical quantum approaches. It's not all or nothing.
That's well put. And for investors, think about building a diversified portfolio. Exposure across hardware, software, services, maybe some pure R&D plays. Focus on solutions that can demonstrate or have a clear path to demonstrating real return on investment, like D-Wave is showing. Support the architectural innovations that prioritize lower error rates and scalability, not just qubit count. Monitor those key technical milestones very closely, particularly around quantum error correction and the journey towards fault tolerance. That's where the real value unlocking will happen. And consider using ETFs for broader, perhaps less risky market exposure. And maybe, just to leave you with a final thought, what impossible problem or intractable challenge exists in your industry, in your field, that quantum computing could potentially unlock? And how will you begin preparing for that possibility? Start now.